The first thing the man did after being reborn was deliberately humiliating his fiancée, calling her a cripple unworthy of him. But to his shock, the fiancée, paralyzed for years, suddenly stood up from her wheelchair. She then declared on the spot that she intended to marry the man's older brother instead. Hearing this, the man couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Everything had unfolded exactly as he had anticipated. In his previous life, both brothers were choosing their brides at the same time. The older brother had quickly chosen Mary, who came from a wealthy family. The man, meanwhile, had no choice but to select Sarah, who was both paralyzed and financially ruined. After marriage, he went to great lengths, seeking the best doctors for Sarah. He even used his own fortune to help her rebuild her life. But on Sarah's birthday, the older brother's enemies suddenly appeared at the door. As the older brother faced imminent danger of being stabbed, the paralyzed Sarah sprang from her wheelchair with incredible speed. She pushed the man aside and took the blow meant for her brother. It wasn't until he was dying that the man realized Sarah had never actually been paralyzed. She had only pretended to be crippled out of anger that her brother chose someone else, using it as an excuse to avoid him. The man could only watch as Sarah escorted the frightened older brother to the hospital, while he himself was stabbed dozens of times, dying with a heart full of resentment. Fortunately, fate gave the man a second chance. He was reborn 5 years back, on the very day of the bride selection, and just like in his previous life, the hypocritical older brother, wanting to keep a reputation for generosity, deliberately let the man choose first. In the past life, the man had noticed the obvious chemistry between his brother and Mary. So he voluntarily chose the paralyzed Sarah to let the two of them be together. But in the end, it led only to his death full of resentment. Reborn, he would never repeat the same mistake. This time, he decisively chose Mary. The older brother's face immediately changed. Their father, standing nearby, slapped the man fiercely. He scolded him, saying Mary was a wealthy heiress, how could she ever look at a worthless son like him? The man let out a cold laugh. If his father had already made up his mind, then why bother going through the bride selection at all? Was it only to prevent outsiders from accusing him of favoritism toward a bastard son? The man declared with determination that today, even if he had to die, he would never marry Sarah, the so-called cripple. But to his astonishment, the moment he finished speaking, Sarah in the wheelchair miraculously stood up. She knew the Lin family's financial chain had collapsed. She offered to inject capital, but only if the young master would marry her. The man suddenly realized that Sarah had also been reborn. To marry his brother, she was willing to put all her wealth on the line as a dowry. Their greedy father was quickly tempted. He immediately agreed to the marriage. Mary, meanwhile, was visibly anxious, insisting she would marry only the older brother. Seeing her brother in a difficult position, the man suggested that perhaps the older brother should marry them both. After all, the Lin family was wealthy and influential, they didn't lack a pair of extra chopsticks. Just as their father was about to explode, the man suddenly proposed taking over the Lin family's overseas branch. He knew the branch had been losing money for years. As a condition for not marrying Sarah, he was willing to take it on. After considering it, their father readily agreed. He had long been looking for an opportunity to get rid of the man as a burden. But just as the man was about to leave, Sarah suddenly called out to him. She mocked him, asking why he, who had always competed with his brother, wasn't contesting this time. Why wasn't he fighting now? The man let out a cold laugh. This time, he refused to be sentimental or sentimentalized. The next day, he boarded a plane to go abroad alone. In his previous life, he had wasted half his life trying to cure Sarah's paralysis. This time, he focused entirely on his work. His business talent quickly became apparent. In just 3 years, he increased the overseas branch's performance 100-fold. He became recognized as a financial prodigy in the industry. He even received a marriage proposal from the daughter of a billionaire. Looking at this pure girl whose eyes were filled with him, the man experienced love for the first time. He decided that once he returned home and sorted out his mother's belongings, he would leave the country entirely with his fiancée. But when he finally returned, exhausted from travel, he found that his room had already been occupied by his brother. And the two women, trying to please the older brother, even demanded that he hand over the overseas company to him. They were convinced he was their obedient puppy. At their command, he would obediently comply. But the man merely let out a cold laugh. He warned his brother not to covet what wasn't his. The inheritance their father left him was already more than enough. The overseas company was out of the question. Seeing his brother looking aggrieved, Sarah immediately commanded him to apologize. Unexpectedly, the man slapped Sarah without a word. He scolded her, saying, "A gold-digging nobody has no right to order me around." Mary, standing by, was immediately furious. She decided to give the man one last chance. If he obediently signed the asset transfer agreement, she would reluctantly have dinner with him. But the man ripped the transfer agreement to shreds. He had no patience to waste on these two fools. Without looking back, he left. The next day, he packed his luggage and quickly arrived at the airport. But just as he was about to depart, Mary suddenly ran after him. She said that last night, their brother had been so agitated by the man that he attempted suicide by jumping. She demanded that the man accompany her to the hospital immediately to give her brother a blood transfusion. The man called over his bodyguards without hesitation. He mocked Mary, a bankrupt heiress, for daring to overestimate herself.